5. Signs an elderly person is nearing the end. Subtle clues you must not miss. Have you ever felt unsure about whether your loved one's recent changes are simply the natural course of aging or indicators of something more serious, something that suggests they may be nearing the end of their life? It's a difficult topic, one that many of us find emotionally draining to face. Still, being prepared can bring peace of mind and allow us to offer better support in our loved one's final journey. Today, we'll discuss 5 important signs that an elderly person may be approaching the end of life. Each sign is subtle enough to miss if you're not looking for it, yet crucial enough that you shouldn't ignore it. By the end of this video, you'll have a deeper understanding of these changes, and you'll be better equipped to provide comfort, empathy, and the practical help that your loved one needs. Please remember, I'm not a medical professional. The information shared here is for general awareness and should not replace the advice of qualified healthcare experts. Always consult a doctor or palliative care specialist if you have concerns. Also, if you find value in these insights, comment below to let me know you're here. And feel free to subscribe or share your personal experiences to help others in our community. Let's get started. 6. Noticeable change in physical energy and responsiveness. As individuals approach the end of their life, one of the earliest and most telling signs is a significant change in physical energy levels. This isn't just typical getting older fatigue, it's a deep and persistent tiredness, sometimes to the point where everyday tasks, like eating a meal or getting out of bed, feel monumental. It's more than feeling sleepy. You might observe longer nap times, slower movement, and less overall engagement with their surroundings. Now, you may be wondering what this actually looks like in a real situation. Let me share the story of Edna. She was a lively 88-year-old grandmother who loved crocheting blankets for her grandchildren. For many years, Edna struggled with heart issues but still managed to cook breakfast every morning, sit on the porch in the afternoons, and chat on the phone with her friends. Over time, her family noticed she started sleeping through her normal brunch hour. Then she began dozing off mid-conversation. Finally, she stopped going to her beloved front porch because it required too much energy to walk outside and sit in a chair. These changes happened gradually, so they were easy to dismiss at first. Her grandchildren assumed she just needed more rest because grandma's getting older. But as the weeks passed, Edna's responsiveness also declined. She would sometimes stare off into space, only half listening to conversations. Her once bright eyes seemed to lose their spark, and even crocheting, the hobby she once adored, was left abandoned in the corner of her room. This shift in energy and attentiveness was more than normal aging. It was a clue that her body and mind were starting to slow down in preparation for life's final stage. Of course, that doesn't mean every older adult who's more tired than usual is dying, but when these levels of exhaustion persist and worsen, it's time to pay attention. Before we move on, let's talk briefly about what you can do if you notice significant energy and responsiveness changes. Consult with healthcare providers for a thorough evaluation, because sometimes treatable conditions like infections, medication side effects, or even depression can cause similar fatigue. Offering soft foods and easy-to-drink liquids can also help if the person becomes too tired to eat or drink in normal amounts. Most importantly, show understanding. Encourage rest, accept that they may not want to engage in lengthy conversations or activities. When you observe these shifts, remind yourself that it isn't laziness. It's often the body's natural way of conserving energy for essential functions. After all, part of caring for a loved one nearing the end is recognizing their limitations and meeting them where they are, physically, emotionally, and mentally. Moving on to our next sign. 2. Reduced interest in food, fluids, and social interaction. It's not unusual for older adults to have smaller appetites, but there's a notable difference between eating lightly and losing almost all interest in food and fluids. When a person nears the end of life, their body gradually shuts down and doesn't require the same intake of calories or fluids. This decrease can manifest in skipping multiple meals, refusing once beloved treats, or becoming unable to swallow certain textures. Additionally, you might see a withdrawal from normal social activities. They may avoid gatherings where food is the focus, like Sunday dinners or group lunches, citing fatigue or lack of appetite. They may also start preferring solitude, spending long hours alone in their room. Although quiet moments are normal for many seniors, sudden or extreme withdrawal can point to something deeper. Take the case of Harold, a 92-year-old retired teacher known for never missing a family barbecue. One summer, Harold began skipping the Sunday cookouts he once loved. At first, his children chalked it up to the heat or his arthritis flaring. Then they realized that even at home he barely touched his plate. He sipped water occasionally but turned down most drinks unless someone reminded him. Over time, he also stopped playing checkers with his grandsons and withdrew from the nightly phone calls he had enjoyed for years. His family grew concerned and scheduled a doctor's visit. Although initial lab tests showed no glaring infection or imbalance, the palliative care specialist explained that as the body prepares for final stages, hunger and thirst signals change significantly. Digestion becomes more difficult, and the body naturally requires less intake. The lack of desire for social connection often accompanies this process because interacting with multiple people can become draining, and sometimes older adults find it more peaceful to limit stimuli. If you notice these behaviors in your loved one, consider smaller, more frequent offerings of food instead of full meals. Encourage hydrating with gentle reminders or by providing easy-to-hold containers, but resist the urge to force or pressure them to eat and drink more than they can handle. It may cause discomfort or even distress. Meanwhile, remain accessible and open for conversation while respecting their need for privacy and rest. If you're concerned about dehydration or nutritional deficiencies, seek medical advice. They may recommend specific supplements or intravenous fluids if absolutely necessary. Always balance medical interventions with the person's comfort and dignity, remembering that part of end-of-life care often focuses on easing discomfort rather than prolonging life at all costs. Now, let's move on to the third sign. 6. Significant in mood awareness or cognition. Many older adults have good days and bad days, mentally speaking. However, when nearing the end of life, some experience pronounced shifts in mood, sudden confusion, hallucinations, or episodes of agitation. These can be unsettling for both the individual and their family members. Sometimes a usually calm person may become irritable or fearful. Other times, someone who's been withdrawn might suddenly engage in long conversations with unseen visitors. For instance, let's talk about Lorraine, an 85-year-old who had always been soft-spoken and polite. She rarely raised her voice. During the last few weeks of her life, Lorraine began waking up at 2 a.m., convinced that her mother, who had passed away decades earlier, was sitting beside her. She even began speaking to someone in the corner of her room, giggling like a little girl. Her grandson Mark initially found this alarming, afraid she might have an undiagnosed condition like dementia. Yet Lorraine's doctor explained that this phenomenon could be part of the end-of-life process. Terminal restlessness or near-death visions are not uncommon, and they don't always signify a treatable psychiatric or neurological illness. In other cases, a normally social and pleasant individual might suddenly become suspicious or resentful. Consider Joyce, who started accusing her daughter of stealing her favorite shawl, even though it was draped over the couch in plain sight. Such behavior can spring from delirium, medication imbalances, reduced oxygen to the brain, or the body's general decline. If your loved one is experiencing these shifts, your first step should be a medical evaluation, because some symptoms are related to medication side effects or treatable metabolic imbalances. If no direct cause is found, it could simply be a byproduct of the end-of-life journey. During these moments, reassurance and calm communication are key. Avoid arguing or trying to convince them they're mistaken. That can cause more confusion and agitation Instead, validate their emotions. If they seem fearful, a gentle hand on their arm or a soothing voice can help. Speak softly, using simple phrases. Avoid sudden movements or loud noises that might startle them. Pay attention to patterns. Do these episodes happen at specific times, like nighttime? Could they be related to discomfort, like pain or needing the bathroom? Document any triggers and share them with healthcare providers. Sometimes adjusting a room's lighting, playing soft music, or scheduling brief, quiet visits instead of long gatherings can minimize overstimulation. And always remember, their world may be changing faster than they can express, so patience and empathy go a long way in alleviating emotional turmoil. If you find these tips helpful, please comment below. Your interactions help our community grow and remind us we're not alone in facing these challenges. Now, let's look at our fourth sign. Signs and 4 noticeable changes in breathing patterns and physical appearance. Another subtle clue that a person is nearing the end is a noticeable change in how they breathe, as well as certain shifts in their physical appearance. Breathing may become irregular, with periods of rapid, shallow breathing followed by stretches of no breathing at all, often called Cheyne-Stokes respiration. There can also be more audible sounds, like a soft moaning or gurgling. Though these sounds can be alarming, they're not always indicators of pain. They often result from the body's difficulty clearing secretions as muscles relax. Physically, you might observe changes such as swelling in the feet or hands, cooler extremities, or skin color alterations, sometimes a pale or bluish tint, especially around fingernails and lips. The body may appear generally weaker or more fragile, and the person might struggle to maintain a comfortable position. Occasionally, older adults nearing the end become thin very quickly, losing muscle mass at a pace that might surprise family members who saw them only a few weeks prior. Consider a story about Michael. His daughter Gina noticed that her father's hands were becoming very cold, even if the room was warm. She also saw purple blotches around his knees and elbows, a phenomenon that's sometimes referred to as mottling. Michael's breathing would alternate between fast, shallow pants and sudden pauses that made Gina hold her breath in alarm, waiting for him to inhale again. She grew anxious, unsure if he was in distress. The hospice nurse explained that these patterns are common in the final days or weeks of life, and that they often indicate the body is naturally shutting down. However unsettling these physical and breathing changes can be for loved ones, it's important to remain calm. If your elderly family member is already receiving hospice or palliative care, the healthcare team likely has measures in place to keep them as comfortable as possible, whether that's administering medication to ease congestion or showing you how to reposition them to facilitate breathing. In many end-of-life care settings, raising the head of the bed or using additional pillows can help them breathe more comfortably. A gentle, cool cloth on the forehead can also soothe discomfort if the person has a mild fever. In some cases, breathing changes happen off and on for weeks, so try not to interpret one irregular pattern as the absolute final moment. Each person's journey is unique. When you notice these signs, it helps to have a plan. Keep emergency numbers handy if you're not under hospice care. Maintain open communication with nurses, doctors, or home health aides. Share observations about changes in skin color or breathing patterns, as these can alert professionals to intervene with comfort measures. Most importantly, remain present. Sometimes offering your hand, a few gentle words, or simply being there in silence can bring more reassurance than we realize. Now, let's move on to our fifth and final sign. Signal 5, unspoken preparations, final wishes, and spiritual indicators. The final sign can be somewhat intangible, but it's no less significant. Many elderly people nearing the end of life begin communicating a desire for closure, whether through final wishes, last conversations, or what we might call spiritual or existential indicators. They may express regrets, ask for certain mementos to be placed at their bedside, or request visits from specific friends or family members. Sometimes, a previously agnostic individual may ask for a clergy member's presence, while a religious person might intensify their spiritual or prayer activities. Richard's story is a great example. At 90, Richard had never been particularly religious, But in his last months, he asked his daughter to bring a small cross to his hospital room, one that once belonged to his late wife. He spent hours holding it, staring out the window as if in quiet reflection. He also asked to speak with an old friend he'd had a falling out with decades earlier, and it seemed that making amends brought him visible peace. Others might display their end-of-life readiness in different ways. Consider Marta, who gathered all her important documents, her will, life insurance policy, and property deeds, and had them neatly labeled for her children. She quietly mentioned that she didn't want a large funeral, but instead a small family gathering with her favorite flowers. These preparations may surprise family members who haven't even thought about the possibility of losing their loved one. But for Marta, it was an essential step that gave her a sense of dignity and control over what lay ahead. When your loved one shows signs of tying up loose ends, making final requests, or demonstrating heightened interest in spiritual matters, recognize that this is a natural part of life's closure. If they reach out to you or ask for your help in making arrangements, see it as an opportunity to offer unconditional support. You don't have to agree with all their choices, simply respect them. Ask questions kindly. Dad, is there anything else you'd like me to prepare? Or Mom, would you like me to call someone for you? Resist the urge to dismiss these discussions as too morbid. Instead, provide reassurance that you'll honor their wishes. Sometimes older adults sense that their time is near, even before any strong medical evidence surfaces. There's no scientific formula to predict exactly when someone will pass away, but these emotional, spiritual, and organizational signs often indicate they are reflecting on their life's journey and preparing themselves and their loved ones for the inevitable. Summary of the 5 We've explored 5 key indicators: noticeable changes in physical energy, reduced interest in food and social interaction, significant mood or cognitive shifts, irregular breathing and physical appearance changes, and finally, the unspoken preparations for closure. Each sign can appear at different times, overlap, or fluctuate. It's never easy to pinpoint the exact moment when someone transitions from simply being old to truly nearing life's end. But recognizing these subtle clues can make all the difference in how you choose to support and comfort your loved one. Practical steps and reassurance. As we wrap up these 5 signs, I want to stress that spotting them doesn't have to fill you with panic or dread. Instead, allow this awareness to guide you toward meaningful action. Here are 3 practical tips to keep in mind. First, open lines of communication. Talk honestly with your loved one about their wishes. Encourage them to share any pain, discomfort, or concerns. If they're reluctant, gently reassure them that no topic is off limits and that you're there to listen without judgment. In many cases, simply being heard helps relieve emotional burdens. Second, consult healthcare professionals. Whether it's a family doctor, hospice nurse, palliative care specialist, or counselor, reach out for guidance. These professionals can help manage physical symptoms like pain, breathing difficulty, or delirium. They can also provide valuable advice on end-of-life planning, coping mechanisms, and emotional support for both the patient and their family. Third, respect their autonomy and dignity. If your loved one has made specific requests, like refusing certain treatments or wanting to remain at home, try to honor these wishes if they are medically feasible. Feeling a sense of control in their final stage can greatly ease emotional distress. Remember, while declining physical health, reduced appetite, changes in mood, breathing shifts, and final preparations might be part of the natural process, each person's journey is unique. Some individuals continue to rally for weeks or months after showing these signs. Others quietly slip away, surprising everyone with how quickly they transition. Addressing financial worries. In many situations, approaching end of life can be associated with unexpected financial strains, which may add a layer of stress. Healthcare costs, from hospice care to possible hospital stays, can mount quickly, leaving family members worried about bills and insurance coverage. Some older adults are keenly aware of this burden, and it can weigh on them emotionally. If you're facing financial concerns, consider speaking with a social worker or financial counselor who specializes in elder care. They can help you navigate Medicare, Medicaid, or other insurance options to ensure that your loved one gets the care they deserve without undue financial strain on the family. It's a conversation that may feel uncomfortable at first, but it can bring immense relief once you have a clearer picture of the resources available. In addition, be cautious about potential scams targeting seniors or their families, such as overpriced funeral planning services, fraudulent end-of-life insurance policies, or phone calls that prey on emotionally vulnerable individuals. Always verify the credentials and reviews of any organization offering services during this sensitive period. If something feels too good to be true, it often is. When in doubt, consult trusted legal or financial professionals for advice. Sharing experiences and building community. One of the most valuable things you can do as you navigate this process is to share your experiences, both good and bad. By leaving a comment about what you've learned or challenges you're facing, you can help others realize that they're not alone. Sometimes hearing from a fellow caregiver can be more comforting than any textbook explanation because you know they've been there too. If you agree that community support is vital, comment below. It's a simple way to let others know you're open to sharing and learning from each other's journeys. Likewise, consider joining a local or online support group for caregivers and families of those in hospice or palliative care. Peer support can be a lifeline when professional resources aren't immediately available or when you just need someone who gets it. Emotional self-care for caregivers. Watching a loved one approach the end of life can be heartbreaking. Emotions ranging from grief to relief can surface often in the same day. It's essential to remember that you too need care and compassion during this period. Take small moments for yourself, whether it's a walk outside, a short meditation, or talking to a friend who understands. Anna, for example, was the primary caregiver for her mother for over a year. She dedicated every waking hour to ensuring her mom's comfort. However, she neglected her own health, skipping routine medical appointments and losing sleep. Eventually, she ended up in the emergency room from exhaustion and stress. When her mother passed, Anna felt not only profound grief, but also regret for how she neglected her own needs. Please, if you're in a caregiver role, recognize your limits. Ask for help, whether it's respite care provided by a community program or a neighbor willing to deliver a meal once a week. That small break can rejuvenate your emotional reserves and make you a more effective companion for your loved one in their final days. Where do we go from here? We've covered a lot of ground. To recap briefly, the 5 signs to watch for include major shifts in physical energy, reduced interest in food and social interaction, changes in mood or cognition, altered breathing patterns and appearance, and preparations for closure or final wishes. Each sign serves as a subtle but meaningful reminder that life's final chapter may be unfolding. At this point, you might be wondering how best to move forward if you've identified one or more of these signs in someone you care for. The next steps will vary, but here are a few guiding principles. Have open, honest conversations about palliative or hospice care options. Make sure essential legal documents like a power of attorney, living will, or advance directive are in order, and if possible, create a nurturing, peaceful environment that reflects your loved one's preferences. Keep in mind, no matter how much you prepare, the experience of losing someone you love is never easy. There's no universal script for handling the emotions that come with saying goodbye. What truly makes a difference is your presence, your willingness to listen, and your commitment to preserving their dignity. A heartfelt invitation to engage. Now, I'd like to invite you to share your own journey. Have you noticed any of these signs in a family member or a close friend? Did you learn something today that eased your worries or sparked new questions? Feel free to share in the comments. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to read right now. If you found this video or article helpful, please hit the like button or subscribe to stay informed about future discussions on senior wellness, caregiving tips, and community support. We're here to learn from one another and to remind ourselves that no one needs to walk this path alone. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Remember, while this topic is heavy, it's also a natural part of the human experience, one that can be approached with compassion, understanding, and love. Take good care of yourself and your loved ones, and together, let's strive to make each day count, both in life's twilight and beyond. Stay safe, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, may you find comfort and reassurance in the caring community that surrounds you. And as always, consult with healthcare professionals whenever you have doubts or concerns. Your peace of mind is important not just for you, but for the dignity and comfort of the person you hold dear. Thank you, and take care.